So you guys have heard of this phenomena called incels, right? I think I've maybe talked about them once or twice on the channel. Something funny happened recently where a former mod of an incel community, maybe you've seen this even, a former mod of an incel community, my brothers, they've made it. I feel a lot of mixed feeling about leaving the incel community. While it feels good to no longer be incel, I'm going to miss all the friends and connections I've made. To all of you who have supported me over the years, thank you. I start a new chapter in my life, albeit late. Hey! Hey, wait, come on. Hey, come on. This is, good on you. It seems that my friend Commissarge over here is using the term incel correctly, whereas I refer to myself as an incel at 10 a.m. in the morning sometimes if I thought of pussy at 9 a.m. but didn't immediately touch one. So it's, there's like a spectrum of inceldom, and he seems to adhere to a more purist definition. And I respect him for that. People were very mad about this. Now, okay, so you've probably seen this has 90K likes. You've probably seen this tweet, but it's honestly disgusting. You would betray your community when some chick finally settles for you. To which he responds, "Will enjoy." Well, I assume he means well. Well, enjoy being a virgin for some weird cause. No one wants to be incel. Lol. We're not Jedi. No. This is all they had. They love depicting themselves as Jedi. Why do you leave? Did you manage to stop being an incel? If so, then, do you feel no longer being identified with so many sad, depressed men out there? Imagine if normal people are clueless and careless about being a virgin past 25 to 30 plus years old. How is to have now careless ex-incels? This guy's spitting. This is the equivalent of LeBron retiring. Phenomenal stuff. Okay. There are a lot of posts like this. I mean, it goes on, right? It's like a thread. This is why the incel community will never start a movement and bring about change. It only takes one hoe to sacrifice herself and give some crumbs of pussy, and the whole movement would collapse due to too many betraying. Yeah, okay. So the whole thing is basically like the guy is arguing with people who respond, who are basically saying that he's like a Judas, he's betrayed the movement. Which really indicates kind of like the separation here between the people like the mod, like Commissarge, who think of inceldom as kind of like an unfortunate descriptor of your state of being, and other people who think of it as like a revolutionary political label, right? Like there are a lot of people for whom not getting laid is just like an unfortunate personal thing they're dealing with. And I think that's what most people thought of it as for like most of human history, right? Like most people want to be slamming and jamming. This is the case. Everyone knows this. Does everyone know there are ace people? But let's be real, most people want to be slamming and jamming. And for those who want to but can't, a lot of the time it's like, oh, well, this is unfortunate, or they, blame, there are no good men or women these days. But with the incel thing, it's more of a like, the reason we're not getting laid is because there are socioeconomic forces that are leading to these negative outcomes. And the funny thing is, I actually agree. Like, I do think, and I got in a lot of trouble for saying this, right? Like on Twitter, there were people telling me that I was pro-rape, that I was an incel. They sent me death threats. I do believe that people, men, women, anyone, people not getting laid when they want to is a socioeconomic problem. For the same reason that I think people having fewer friends is a socioeconomic problem. It's a descriptor of broader issues with sociability and loneliness. Though obviously with sex specifically, it's more of a like specific thing, right? Because there are things that might affect a person's ability to get laid that aren't as much of like a broad social thing. Or to put it another way, being unattractive can be a hindrance in finding friends, but a significant hindrance in getting laid. There are disproportionate, if you're like a fun, goofy person, like there are different, like maybe it's easier. Hey, there are some people for whom it's way easier to get laid than it is to make friends. It goes both ways. It's always a grass is greener situation, right? People who have friends but aren't getting laid complain about the friend zone, or they just stand there visualizing a 3D pussy in their head and like rotate it, you know, sadly. And then there are people who can get laid because they have like bar charisma, but they were really bad at making friends. You know, I have a friend of a friend like that. I don't think I have a friend like that, but I have a friend of a friend like that who works as a bouncer at a club. And, you know, bouncer at a club, he gets laid pretty often, right? Like he's not lacking in that department. But man's been at this for years and he hasn't found a relationship or even a friend out of it, right? Because it's always one night stand stuff, you know? So it does go both ways. And I actually agree with the incels in the sense that there's a broader socioeconomic thing going on here. It's not just personal failings, but obviously, you know, once you get down that road far enough, it's like, okay, we're not really talking about changing society for the better here, right? We're talking state mandated girlfriends. Don't worry, no one will miss you, fake cell. I hope the stinky hole you got was worth it. No clues as to why this guy's not getting laid. Absolutely no guesses. Stinky hole. Jesus. I get that, but the less of us remain in the community, the weaker our movement and voice becomes. Kind of interesting, this thought process right here, right? Because you'd think the less people remain in the incel community, the less valid the movement and voice becomes, right? Like, if people aren't incels because they're all getting laid, then what need would there have been for the cause of all the former incels? It doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical. Anyway, this isn't huge internet drama. This is getting blown up more outside the incel community than within it. I think the original tweet from the guy, the one we're looking through right now, even now has only a couple hundred likes. So why go over it, right? Well, I think you know, I think it's kind of like a microcosm in a way of how the incel community is innately hostile towards any force that would solve the problems of the incel community. We've talked about this before. You know how, like, if you go up to an incel and you're like, take a shower, bro, a lot of them will get offended because they consider it like kind of patronizing to offer them advice that A is obvious and B, like, oh yeah, that'll get me laid. To be fair, there are a lot of incels who could still stand to take the basic advice. But you know, I'd agree most of them are showering at the very least. But I think stuff like this is a reminder that, you know, it doesn't really matter how far back you pull. There's always going to be this like innate resistance to change because the victim mindset is the primary identifier there. And I really worry about stuff like this, right? I mean, you know how you know how some people are Nazis? I hate to break this to you. At least a few are. One of the most common reasons members of neo-Nazi militias don't leave, as cited by former members of neo-Nazi militias, is because they were afraid of retribution from their former militia members. You know, it's like a prison gang. You can't really leave. But even for the non-gang far right groups. I mean, even for like online groups, right? Like if you're a Nazi online in some like Nazi Discord server, they're not going to hire hitmen to kill you if you leave the Discord server, right? But there was a commonly cited sort of anxiety about leaving the group because there was a feeling that if they moved from it in any way, they would no longer be welcome within it, and they wouldn't be welcome anywhere else either. And I think we're actually seeing the exact same issue with people who are going to grow out of the incel movement, right? Because a person who has identified as an incel for years and years and then finally gets laid at like 26. And by the way, finally, like, oh, 26, right? Like, oh yeah, you're basically dead already, sure. But, you know, gets laid at 26. Well, think about it. They can't really get along with their incel community, which is the main social group they've probably had for a while now because, you know, they're taking a different path in life. But there's also probably a stigma against them in other communities because a lot of their vernacular, a lot of their terminology, and a lot of their ideology is going to be influenced by the community they've been in prior. It's a like reinforcing system. It's a cycle that keeps them where they are like presently. And in a way, this is actually one of the things that I think is kind of a benefit for liberal individualism, you know? The idea that if you're not getting laid, it's your fault and your problem is not always true, but it can direct people's motivations in the correct way. It can direct you to focus on things you're actually capable of changing and not to identify with your victimhood status. And I think those are generally good things. I don't think you should identify with your status as a victim, and I don't think that you should hyperfixate on problems that you can't immediately solve. I see a lot of this when it comes to talking about discipline with lefties, Like, a lot of lefties really hate the idea of discipline as a social good because in a capitalist system, discipline often means can you work 40 hours a week at a shit dead end job while being underpaid and dealing with abuse from customers and your boss without crying? And if you can, congratulations, you're a disciplined adult. And if not, you're not. No congratulations. So they don't like discipline because they see it as complicity within the system. But obviously, discipline is useful outside that, right? Discipline can help you order your life in ways that can actually make it a lot easier to live. It's not just about being complicit. It's also about, overcoming more minor obstacles. Uh, do you see the parallels that I'm trying to draw here? There's something fundamental here. There's something kind of like innate to broad social analysis of personal problems that can often lead people to really bad fixations when it comes to getting out of those communities or the social spaces they've built up around those sociological beliefs. And I don't know. I mean, I'm wishing this person the best of luck, the commissage person. I don't really know. One taste of pussy pie, and a man will turn his back on his friends. Just like that. True? Wild stuff. You'll be back, Brev. No coming back once you cross the bridge. You at the equivalent of a dropout having 600K in his shitcoin wallet. Get rich quick, get poor quick. What, is he gonna regain his virginity? Wait, what are they implying here? Like, oh yeah, man, dude, you got laid, and that's great, but you're about to get unlaid so fast it'll make your head spin. What the f are you talking about? What? Maybe they're using my definition of incel. Like, this guy will wake up, rotate a 3D pussy in his mind in the shower, and then have like a semi when he gets out, and he'll be like, "Damn, that was a really incel shower." Man, I feel that. Anyone else in chat feel that? That's real. That's some real shit right there. Sentiment, yeah. I'm rooting for him. Ah, he's still posting, and I don't understand the terminology. I don't know if I can free scroll through this person's Twitter account. What the f is this? I'm not reading that. Nihilists after getting their first foot job under the table at Applebee's. I want to... Okay, I feel like we're talking about a lot of personal advice on the stream, which feels kind of appropriate given where my mind is at. So I'm just going to say this, okay? Guys, this is going to hurt, but this is true. And if you disagree with me, it means you need to reorder your life, okay? Do not overcommit to social spaces where the purpose of the social space is not the love and affection and care the people within that group have for each other. Don't overcommit to socialist servers. Don't overcommit to gaming servers. Don't overcommit to incel servers. Don't overcommit to anime servers or anything like that, okay? Don't form overly close bonds to people purely based on shared interest or ideology. Because if your ideology or interests change, that's all gone. And that's your whole social base right there. You can find friends in those groups. Don't get me wrong. I do that. I've done that. We've all done that, I think. But the group itself is not to be trusted because groups of people are ephemeral. They change, they shift, and you can't have strong expectations for them because it's literally a group of people. It's not an individual person. You can't hold expectations for a group the same way you would for an individual, especially if you're not like in control of that group in some administrative sense. So, yeah, no matter where you are in life or how you identify or what you're concerned about or what's bothering you, just make sure to never get too obsessively in on any circle to the point that it replaces like actual interpersonal friendships, okay? Because I think these people are in a rough spot, okay? God help them.